The big one in Jacksonville, Florida. That's right. The big SEC game, Georgia, Florida, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Georgia, a 14.5-point favorite in this one. Oh, by the way, the over-under, again, want to make sure I got the most accurate number. It is 47 points. Interesting narratives coming into this game. This is college football, right? There's always interesting stuff going on. Georgia, we know what the big one is, right? They lost probably the best non-Marvin Harrison skill position player in college football in Brock Bowers. Hurts his ankle against Vanderbilt, has surgery. Good news is, doesn't feel like he's going to be out the rest of the year. I will say this, though. Georgia's back half of the schedule, all of a sudden, it looks a lot tougher than it did a few weeks ago. Missouri's playing well. Ole Miss is playing well. Tennessee is playing well. So it ain't going to be easy for these Georgia Bulldogs. It's not really about that. It's about getting Brock Bowers healthy. But he isn't in this game. And then from Florida's perspective, how about Billy Napier? He hasn't gotten very much Sunbelt Billy lately, has he? Billy Napier in Florida, it feels like for the first time, maybe some real momentum in that program. They obviously, rally against South Carolina. Incredible win. That's a game that bluntly, and I know we got a couple Florida fans that listen to this show. I turned it off. Listen, I'm sorry. I turned it off. If you had it going on in the background, shout out to you, because I did not stay tuned to that game. I just assumed it was over. Graham Mertz is playing really well. It's worth noting, by the way, Florida had a great week in recruiting. Number one defensive lineman in the country, LJ McCray. I'm not a recruiting expert. Number one defensive lineman in the country from the state of Florida commits to Florida. So there's a lot of excitement about the Gators coming into this game. I'm here to say I don't really care. I think Georgia wins big. A couple things here stand out. One, from the Florida perspective, as great as that win was against South Carolina, it is important to note a couple things. First of all, South Carolina's defense is abominable. Okay, and we'll talk about that later as they get set to play Texas A&M. But South Carolina's defense is abominable. And Florida, bluntly, while they put up 41 points, while they put up 14 points in the fourth quarter to rally to win, it's not as though they were moving. I mean, they did have close to 500 yards of total offense, but they only had 71 yards rushing, only 2.5 yards per carry in that game. Now, some of it was because of, the numbers were a little skewed because there were some sacks that counted towards the rushing yardage. But it's not like they were running the ball down South Carolina's throat, and this is a bad South Carolina defense. So the rally was great. You went on the road. I don't want to discredit you for that. But were you that great, or is the South Carolina defense bad and you weren't even that good against South Carolina? Beyond that, and I think this is an important piece too, this kind of feels like a game, almost like Kentucky a few weeks ago for Georgia. This is a kind of a game for Georgia. First of all, there's a lot of Brock Bowers talk. What are they going to do? Carson Beck has been awesome this year, okay? And I think because Brock Bowers has been so good, because it's the Georgia machine, I don't think I'm tripping over all my names now. Carson Beck is getting the credit that he deserves right now. You know, Carson Beck statistically, here are the stats on Carson Beck: 74% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. It's worth noting, of those 12 touchdowns, 4 have gone to Brock Bowers, but of the other 8, they've gone to 7 other players. So 7 players not named Brock Bowers have caught at least 1 touchdown this year. So he's spreading the ball around. Obviously, I think they're going to be able to run the ball based on what we saw Kentucky do a few weeks ago. But I think there's some other factors as well, right? I mean, these are the games that Kirby Smart loves, when it feels like there really is some momentum that he can use and really say, oh, nobody believes in us. There is the fact that everyone's doubting him without Brock Bowers. Remember, Michigan this week officially became, despite everything going on off the field, Michigan officially became the betting favorite in the betting markets for the betting markets. Michigan is officially the betting favorite in the national championship. You think Kirby Smart isn't using that? Oh, everybody's doubting us. Everybody's giving up on us. The other thing too, and maybe this means nothing, I think it's an interesting note though. 2 off seasons ago, the rule got changed. What was the big argument about playing this game in Jacksonville? Georgia and Florida, once every 2 years, lose a recruiting weekend. And Kirby Smart has advocated for this forever. It's like, dude, could be our biggest home game. We don't get to bring recruits on campus. Alabama gets LSU every other year. Auburn gets Alabama every other year. Auburn gets us every other year. We don't get Florida. That's not fair. And so 2 years ago, they started allowing the team that is deemed the home team to bring recruits to this game. Last year, Georgia was able to do it. Now this year, Florida can do it. And I think that's important. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe I'm overanalyzing, whatever. But I bring it up. You don't think that Kirby Smart, in the back of his mind, he's like, oh, all those kids from Florida, we're recruiting a lot of them. We're recruiting a lot of them. Maybe they're all here to see Florida. They're decked out in their Gators gear. They're on the Gator side of the stadium. Why don't we go ahead and give them a little show that they remember? So again, we know college football. It's always about recruiting. A few weeks ago when Dan Lanning ran up the score on Deion, I said, look, it's about recruiting. It's not about offending Deion. It's about being able to go into all those kids' homes over the next couple of years that you're recruiting against Coach Prime and being able to say, you know what? He's fun. He's Hollywood, but we got the W on the field. We dominated them. And I do think there's something to that with Kirby. I don't think he's going to try to embarrass Billy Napier, but I think he's going to try to shut him out. If it's 28-6 late, maybe throw on an extra score just to let everybody know who's boss. So I got Georgia winning. I got Georgia covering. I'll say 31-13, a win and cover.